He thought his mansion would echo with grief forever, until the day he saw her cradling his children in a wooden barrel, washing away their laughter with bubbles. In that instant, something inside him stirred back to life. The mansion had become a mausoleum. It was not the kind of silence born of peace, but the heavy, suffocating hush of absence. No music floated through the corridors anymore. No soft laughter echoed up the marble staircase. Instead, the walls of Daniel Whitmore's estate seemed to groan beneath the weight of memories, memories he could neither banish nor embrace. Daniel sat at the edge of his late wife's piano, a tumbler of untouched whiskey in his hand. He didn't drink, not really, but the glass gave him something to hold, something other than the ache inside his chest. The amber liquid caught the morning light, mocking him with its false warmth. He was only 38. A man who should have been in his prime, commanding boardrooms, traveling cities, making headlines. And yet, grief had a way of stripping the soul bare until even wealth felt useless. His twins, Lily and Noah, just 3 years old, were the only reason he kept breathing. But even with them, guilt gnawed at him. His wife had been their anchor. Without her, he often felt like a stranger raising strangers. A sharp knock at the door broke his haze. "Sir," his house manager's voice filtered through. "The new nanny has arrived." Daniel exhaled. Another nanny. Another stranger who would come and go, frightened off by the twins' restlessness or by his own coldness. He had stopped learning their names. What was the point? Still he rose, straightening the cuffs of his shirt as if duty alone kept him moving. Across town, Ana Morales tugged nervously at the hem of her thrift store blouse. Her palms were clammy, and her worn shoes squeaked against the marble floors as she stepped into the grandeur of the Whitmore estate. She had been in big houses before, always as the help, never as a guest. But this mansion was another world. The children's laughter drifted faintly from somewhere above, a sound that made her heart tug. She hadn't grown up with much laughter herself. Abandoned by her mother young and raised in a foster system that treated children more like numbers than hearts, Anna had learned early to find joy in scraps, an old teddy bear, a quiet corner to read, the warmth of a kind stranger. That's why she had taken this job. She wasn't dazzled by money. She needed work, yes, but she needed something more, something that reminded her that love was still possible in this world. Caring for children gave her that. When Daniel appeared, tall and imposing in his dark tailored suit, Anna nearly lost her words. He was striking, not just in appearance, but in the aura of distance he carried. His eyes were sharp, but dulled with shadows. She sensed the weight he carried before he said a word. "Miss Morales," he greeted curtly, extending a hand. His voice was deep, polished, but flat. "You've been briefed about the children?" "Yes, Mr. Whitmore," she replied softly, clasping his hand. His palm was cool, his grip firm but brief. "I'll do my best." Something in her tone, gentle, almost disarming, made him pause. But he pushed it aside. Everyone started with good intentions. They never lasted. From the stairs, 2 small figures tumbled into view, Lily clutching a ragged teddy bear, Noah dragging a toy car. Their laughter filled the hall, piercing Daniel's chest. They ran straight past him and crashed into Anna's legs, hugging her knees as if she were already theirs. Anna bent, her smile genuine, her arms instinctively wrapping around them. "Hello there," she whispered, her voice soft with warmth. "I think we're going to be great friends." Daniel stood frozen, watching. His children hadn't embraced a nanny like that in months. He clenched his jaw, unwilling to let hope creep in. Still, something unspoken shifted in the air. That night, after the twins had been tucked in, Daniel lingered outside their nursery door, listening to Anna's soft humming. It wasn't a lullaby he knew, perhaps something from her childhood, but the melody wrapped around the silence like a balm. He pressed his forehead briefly to the wall, torn between gratitude and grief. Inside, Anna sat by the twins' bedside, brushing stray curls from Lily's forehead. She glanced toward the door, sensing his presence even if she couldn't see him. Two broken people, unaware they were already stepping into each other's lives. Do you believe that grief can blind us to the people standing right in front of us, people meant to heal us? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to know if you think love after loss is possible. The morning sun streamed through the east wing windows, painting the nursery in golden light. Daniel had been up late in his study, drowning in unfinished contracts and emails he didn't care about. He rose with a headache, loosened his tie, and wandered the halls in search of coffee, or perhaps simply in search of distraction. As he passed the kitchen, faint laughter floated down the back corridor. His brow furrowed. The laughter was not muffled by walls or confined to the playroom. It was open, bright, echoing through the usually sterile space. He followed the sound, drawn despite himself. At the far end, just beyond the laundry area, he paused. The old service room, once meant for servants in generations past, had been unused for years. Yet now, a soft glow seeped through the cracked door. And there it was. Anna knelt beside a large wooden barrel, sleeves rolled up, hair escaping its bun in playful strands. The twins splashed inside the makeshift tub, their giggles ringing like bells. Soap bubbles floated into the air, catching bits of sunlight. Lily squealed as Anna gently poured water over her head from an old enamel jug, while Noah kicked, laughing so hard his chubby fists slapped the water surface. Daniel's breath caught. The barrel itself was nothing glamorous, an old rainwater drum repurposed into something simple and rustic. Yet the scene before him was more beautiful than anything marble bathtubs or gilded bathrooms had ever held. Anna's laughter mingled with the children's. It wasn't the polite, restrained laugh of someone on duty, it was free, warm, unguarded. She wasn't just bathing them. She was loving them. "Hold still, rascal," Anna teased gently, as Noah tried to climb out, slippery and squealing. "If you splash me one more time, I'll turn you into a sea monster." "No!" Noah shouted between giggles. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, unable to look away. His heart, long dormant under layers of grief, stirred painfully. He clenched the doorframe as if steadying himself against a wave. For months, his mansion had been filled with expensive silence. Nurses, nannies, tutors, they had all passed through, professional but detached. None had dared to let joy erupt like this. And yet here was Anna, transforming a forgotten corner of his house into a sanctuary of love. He realized, he hadn't heard his children laugh like that since his wife was alive. Anna looked up then, sensing him. Her cheeks flushed pink, her hands pausing mid-motion. "Mr. Whitmore, I didn't hear you come in." Daniel's throat tightened. He should have said something sharp, something about propriety or mess, but all he managed was a hoarse, What is this?" Anna swallowed, her hand instinctively resting on Lily's shoulder as if shielding the child. "The twins, they don't like the big bathroom upstairs. They cry when the water runs. Yesterday, I found this old barrel in the shed. I thought, maybe something smaller, cozier, would make them feel safe." She lowered her eyes, nervous now. "I'm sorry if I overstepped." Overstepped. The word cut him. Because in truth, she hadn't overstepped. She had stepped into a space he hadn't even known was empty. Daniel's gaze flickered from the twins' radiant smiles to Anna's soaked blouse, clinging at her waist, to the bubbles floating lazily in the sunlight. And for the first time in years, something broke inside him, not grief, but the iron grip of his loneliness. He exhaled slowly, words catching in his chest. "No," he murmured at last, his voice rougher than he intended. "You didn't overstep." Anna's eyes lifted, startled. He took a step closer, his polished shoes brushing against the worn floorboards. His gaze lingered on the twins, Lily pressing bubbles to Anna's nose, Noah giggling with wild abandon. It was too much. Too raw. Too beautiful. And he felt it, the dangerous spark he had buried under grief, longing. For warmth. For connection. For her. He turned sharply, retreating before the storm inside him showed on his face. Behind him, Anna's breath trembled. She had seen it in his eyes, if only for a second, something shifting, something alive. She dipped the jug into the water again, her hands steady though her heart raced. The twins didn't notice the silence heavy between their nanny and father. They only splashed and laughed, their voices like music spilling into the hollow mansion. But for both adults, that ordinary barrel bath had already changed everything. For the next few days, Daniel avoided the East Wing altogether. He buried himself in conference calls, endless board reports, and the pretense of a man in control. Yet the image of the barrel lingered. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his children's joy, and Anna's laughter, her sleeves rolled up, her face lit with a kind of tenderness he hadn't felt in years. It unsettled him. That night, during dinner, Lily dropped peas from her spoon and giggled. Anna laughed softly, wiping the mess from the child's chin. Daniel's fork stilled midair. He watched, too long too openly, before catching himself and retreating into the stiffness of his chair. Anna noticed. She had noticed everything since that morning, the way his gaze sometimes lingered, the way his voice caught when he addressed her. It made her chest tighten with something she didn't dare name. And so, she too resisted. Whenever Daniel entered a room, she busied herself with the twins. When his footsteps echoed in the hallway, she found reasons to leave quickly. She told herself it was professionalism, but deep inside, it was fear. Fear of the divide between them, fear of her own heart betraying her. One evening, as Anna read a bedtime story, Daniel appeared at the nursery door. His presence filled the room, tall, controlled, his tie loosened as though he'd come straight from some corporate battlefield. "Good night," he murmured to the twins. "Daddy." Lily squealed, stretching her little arms toward him. Daniel hesitated, then crossed the room, scooping her up. Her tiny arms circled his neck, and for a moment his eyes softened. Anna felt the sting of it, how deeply the children loved him, how deeply they needed both parents. She closed the book quietly, setting it aside. As she rose to leave, his gaze flicked toward her. Their eyes met. For a suspended second, neither moved. "Thank you," he said, his voice lower than usual. Anna nodded, her throat tight. "Of course." She slipped past him, brushing against his sleeve, the warmth of his skin startling her. Her pulse quickened. She fled before he could see it on her face. By the end of the week, Daniel found himself in the library, pacing like a caged man. His confidant, Charles, the family's attorney and his oldest friend, leaned back in an armchair, watching him. "You've been restless," Charles observed, swirling his brandy. "What's gnawing at you this time?" Daniel scowled, shoving his hands into his pockets. "It's nothing." Charles arched a brow. "Nothing? Daniel, I've known you since college. You only pace like this when there's a woman involved." Daniel froze. Charles chuckled dryly. "Don't look so guilty. Who is she? Some socialite? A board member's daughter?" "No," Daniel muttered, almost bitterly. "Not at all." "Then?" Daniel's jaw clenched. He turned to the window, watching the moonlight stain the garden's silver. His silence was answer enough. Charles straightened, his amusement fading. "Daniel, you can't be serious." "It's not," Daniel began, but his voice cracked. He swallowed. "It's not like that." But it was. And denying it out loud only made the truth burn hotter inside him. Meanwhile, Anna confided in the only person she trusted, her younger sister, Sophia. They spoke on the phone late at night, Anna curled up in her small attic room above the garage. "He's difficult," Anna whispered, keeping her voice low. "Cold sometimes. But then there are moments," she broke off, shaking her head. "Moments I don't understand." Sophia's laughter crackled through the line. "Anna, you sound like a woman in trouble." "I can't," Anna said firmly. "He's my employer." He's a millionaire, Sophia. "And I'm," She looked at her threadbare pajamas, at the worn quilt on her bed. I'm nobody. Don't say that. Sophia's voice softened. You're somebody to those twins. Maybe even to him. Anna's throat tightened. She wanted to believe it. But the weight of reality pressed too hard. The tension finally snapped one rainy afternoon. The twins were restless, bouncing between couches and cushions while thunder cracked outside. Anna chased them gently, laughing as she scooped Noah into her arms. Daniel appeared unexpectedly, jacket damp from the storm. Their eyes locked across the chaos, her hair messy from play, his tie askew. The children's laughter filled the space between them. For a heartbeat, it felt like family. Too much. Too dangerous. Daniel cleared his throat, coldness rushing in like armor. Miss Morales, he said sharply, perhaps you should keep the children calmer indoors. They'll injure themselves. Anna stiffened, Noah still giggling against her shoulder. They're only playing, Mr. Whitmore. Children need. I pay you to manage them, not indulge them, he cut in, his tone harsher than he intended. Silence fell. Lily's lip trembled. Anna's arms tightened around Noah, her cheeks burning. Yes, sir, she whispered, her voice clipped. She turned away, guiding the children upstairs without another glance. Daniel stood there, drenched in guilt, watching her retreat. His own words echoed back at him, colder than the storm outside. Why did he push her away when every fiber of him wanted to draw nearer? That night, alone in his study, he pressed his palms into his eyes. He remembered the barrel bath, the bubbles, the children's laughter, and her eyes lifting toward him, full of quiet light. And he hated himself for the wall he had just rebuilt. The storm had not relented. Rain pounded against the mansion windows, turning the gardens into rivers and drumming a relentless rhythm against the roof. The electricity flickered once, twice, and then went out completely, plunging the Whitmore estate into dim shadows and candlelight. Daniel cursed under his breath. A power outage was inconvenient enough, but with the twins restless, it was quickly becoming chaotic. He found Anna in the nursery, crouched on the floor with a flashlight tucked under her chin. Noah had wrapped himself around her leg, and Lily clung to her side, eyes wide with fear at the thunderclaps outside. Daniel began, then stopped. Words failed him as he took in the sight. The nanny he had been resisting, soaked from the rain earlier when trying to move the children, sitting cross-legged with his kids pressed to her hair sticking to her damp forehead. Anna looked up, startled. Mr. Whitmore, she said, her voice polite but firm, the storm's getting worse. The children. I see, he said shortly. But he didn't move. He couldn't move. The rain's relentless tapping outside mirrored the storm inside him. There was no one else. The house staff had already fled to the lower quarters to wait out the outage. They were trapped here together, whether they liked it or not. Anna guided the twins toward the barrel bath they had used the other day, improvising with warm water she had heated on the stove before the power went out. Daniel's hands twitched at his sides, wanting to intervene yet afraid he would overstep again. The twins giggled as Anna lowered them into the water. Lily splashed, sending tiny droplets onto Anna's arms. Daniel inhaled sharply. It was impossible to ignore how natural, how effortless she was with them. How nurturing. How alive. Anna, he said finally, his voice low, almost hesitant. She looked up. Their eyes locked in the flickering candlelight. For a second, the children were forgotten, the storm outside forgotten, the distance between them impossible to ignore. Yes, sir, she asked, her tone cautious. He swallowed. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Her lips quirked in a faint smile. You don't have to do anything, she said softly. They just need you to be here. Something inside him loosened. He sat down on the edge of the tub, his fingers brushing against the wooden rim, careful not to intrude. He watched her work with the children, her hands gentle, her movements patient. He was a millionaire who had controlled everything in life, But here, he had no control. And yet, he felt safe, oddly grounded. Anna noticed the shift. The tension that had always radiated from him, the armor of grief, was cracking. She felt it in her own chest, a fragile flutter of hope and fear. Lily giggled, tipping water over Anna's arm. "Splash!" she squealed. Anna laughed, brushing her damp hair back. "You little rascal," she said, shaking water from her hands. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to reach out, to touch her arm, to brush back the wet hair. But he froze. The fear of vulnerability, of crossing a line, still held him hostage. Hours passed in quiet chaos. Candles burned low, illuminating small smiles, small gestures, small touches, hands brushing, laughter echoing in the candlelit room. At one point, Anna looked up at him. "You don't have to sit there like a statue," she said lightly, though there was a tremor in her voice. "You can join us, if you want." He blinked, caught off guard. The invitation was so simple, so human, and yet it terrified him. Slowly, cautiously, he lowered himself onto the floor beside the barrel. The twins squealed with delight, reaching for him. He laughed quietly, the sound foreign in his own ears. And then, almost imperceptibly, Anna's eyes softened. She didn't rush him, didn't make a move. She simply let him be there, close but not too close. It was in this forced proximity, the darkness, the storm, the helplessness of the children, that barriers began to crumble. Later, when the twins were tucked into bed, Daniel and Anna remained in the nursery. They didn't speak much, but neither left. The storm's fury outside mirrored the quiet storm inside the room, the tension of unspoken feelings, the weight of unshed words, the fragile beginnings of something neither of them dared to name aloud. Daniel finally broke the silence. You're remarkable with them," he said, his voice quieter than intended. Anna's lips curved into a small, uncertain smile. "They make it easy," she replied. A pause stretched between them. The rain continued its relentless beat, the only witness to the unspoken truths simmering in the room. And for the first time, Daniel allowed himself to think, maybe this isn't something to resist. The following morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the mansion's heavy curtains, painting long shadows across the polished floors. Daniel wandered into the nursery before breakfast, expecting Anna to already have the twins occupied. Instead, he found her seated on the floor, a scrapbook open on her lap, and the children perched around her, utterly absorbed. "What's that?" he asked quietly, trying not to startle them. Anna glanced up, startled, but not afraid. "It's stories," she said softly. "Pictures of me when I was little. I used to make these with my sister." Daniel tilted his head, curious despite himself. "Stories?" She nodded. "I think it's important to remember where you came from. It helps you know who you are. Even if your past isn't perfect." Her voice caught slightly, and Daniel sensed the vulnerability she had been so careful to mask. He didn't comment immediately, unsure if he had the right to intrude. But he stayed, drawn by the quiet honesty she radiated. The twins giggled as Anna pointed at a faded photograph. "And that's me at 6, trying to climb the old oak tree behind my foster home. My sister, she's the one taking the picture. She always believed in me, even when I didn't." Daniel's throat tightened. He saw her smile, but there was a shadow there, a lingering pain she hadn't fully shared. The realization struck him suddenly. Anna's warmth, her gentle laughter, her patience with his children, it wasn't just skill. It was survival. Love born from scarcity, compassion earned through hardship. He cleared his throat. "I didn't know." Anna's eyes flicked to him, wary. "I don't usually talk about it. People assume," she hesitated, then shook her head. "It's nothing to matter to anyone. I'm just me now." But Daniel couldn't let it go. "It matters to me," he said, softer than he intended. "It explains a lot. Why you are the way you are with the twins. Why you care." Her eyes widened, then softened. I don't usually get thanked for it. He shifted uncomfortably. I don't usually notice it, he admitted. But I do now. And I appreciate it more than I can say. Anna's cheeks flushed, a mix of embarrassment and something else, something closer to hope. She smiled faintly, a quiet, fragile thing that spoke volumes more than words ever could. Later that afternoon, Daniel found himself in the study, rifling through old family albums he had never opened since his wife's passing. Photographs of a younger, laughing version of himself, husband, father, partner, stared back at him, a life paused by tragedy. His eyes fell on one in particular, his wife cradling the twins, smiling at him in a sunlit garden. The memory hit like a tidal wave. He remembered her voice, her gentle insistence that he take a break, that he play with the children, that he let joy in. And then he remembered the day she died, too sudden, too cruel, leaving him shattered and unprepared. He pressed a hand to the photograph, feeling the raw ache of loss. The twins were alive, yes, but so much of their mother's warmth had been lost to him. How could he ever let anyone else in? And yet, as his mind wandered to the nursery, to Anna kneeling with the twins, he realized that the house had not been empty, it had only been waiting. Waiting for someone brave enough to care, to fill spaces grief had hollowed out. That evening, a small crisis brought the two of them even closer. Lily had climbed onto a chair and nearly toppled over in her excitement, and Anna caught her just in time. Daniel, rushing to help, grabbed her hands instinctively, his heart racing, not from fear, but from the closeness it demanded. "You're always so careful with them," Daniel said quietly, almost a whisper, as he steadied Lily. Anna looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I have to be," she said. "They're the most important people in the world to someone. And I can't let them be hurt." Daniel's chest ached. The raw devotion in her eyes mirrored his own desperation to protect the twins, and yet it came without the cold rigidity he had surrounded himself with. And then, finally, she shared a truth she had carried alone for years. "I grew up without much," she admitted softly. "No one to really watch over me. I've learned to hold tightly to the people I love, even when it's hard. Even when I'm scared." Daniel's breath hitched. He wanted to reach out, to tell her it was okay to lean on someone else, that he could be that someone, but he hesitated. Words felt fragile, inadequate. Yet the connection was undeniable. For the first time, the walls between them seemed porous. The grief, the fear, the hesitation, they weren't gone, but they no longer blocked the possibility of something more. That night, as the twins slept, Daniel found Anna in the kitchen, cleaning up the remnants of the day. She looked up at him and smiled faintly. "You know," she said softly, "life has a way of putting people where they're needed, whether they're ready or not." Daniel nodded, staring at her. I understand that now." They shared a quiet moment of understanding, a fragile truce between fear and desire, grief and hope. It wasn't love yet, but it was the beginning, the first spark of recognition that two broken souls could help heal each other. The morning after the storm, sunlight filtered softly into the nursery, casting gentle patterns on the floor. The twins were already awake, bouncing on the rug with boundless energy. Daniel sat at the edge of the room, sipping coffee, trying to look casual. But he was acutely aware of Anna moving between the children, her hands steady, her smile effortless, her laughter filling the room like music. It was in these small moments, unguarded and real, that he began to notice things he had long ignored. How she listened carefully when the twins spoke, responding with patience and warmth. How she anticipated their needs without command or pretense. And how, somehow, her presence made the mansion feel less like a mausoleum and more like a home. "Mr. Whitmore," Anna said gently, kneeling beside Noah as he tried to stack a tower of blocks, "maybe you should sit closer. You might be able to help." Daniel moved, setting his coffee aside. His hands hovered awkwardly over the blocks, but Anna's encouraging smile made him try anyway. They built the tower together, Anna guiding subtly, Daniel fumbling with the edges, yet the twins cheered them on. Laughter filled the space, rich and full, and for the first time in years, Daniel felt warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with memory or money. As the morning progressed, Anna noticed how he relaxed in small increments. The stiffness he carried, the cold reserve, began to give way to shared smiles, to gentle teasing, to quiet connection. "You're getting better at this," Anna said, nodding at the tower Daniel had proudly placed on the carpet. He chuckled, the sound rough but genuine. "I've had good teachers." His eyes met hers, lingering just a moment too long, but neither pulled away. After breakfast, the twins insisted on going outside, and Daniel found himself watching Anna lead them into the garden, holding Lily's hand while Noah chased after a butterfly. She moved effortlessly, her voice calm and nurturing, and Daniel felt a pang he didn't quite understand. He wanted to step closer, to touch her arm, to tell her how much he admired her, but he stopped himself, wary of boundaries he no longer believed were his to enforce. Yet Anna, too, felt the shift. In the quiet corners of the day, in the small smiles shared over blocks and bubbles, she realized that her heart was opening. For the first time in years she felt seen, not as a servant, not as less than, but as a woman worthy of care, attention, and maybe, just maybe, love. Later, as the sun dipped lower and the shadows lengthened, the twins fell asleep in their nursery, exhausted from a day of play. Anna settled in a chair, brushing stray curls from Lily's forehead as she whispered a soft good night. Daniel remained standing nearby, hesitant to intrude but unable to leave. "You've changed the way I see this house," Daniel said quietly, finally breaking the silence. Anna glanced up, surprised. "How so?" "It doesn't feel empty," he admitted, his voice low. "Not when you're here." Her cheeks flushed slightly. "I thank you. That means a lot, coming from you." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Daniel swallowed, realizing how much he longed to reach out, to close the distance that had existed between them since the day she arrived. And for the first time, he let himself imagine it, not just admiration or gratitude, but something deeper, something vulnerable. Anna, sensing his hesitation, allowed herself a quiet, gentle smile. She didn't move toward him, she didn't need to, but the soft curve of her lips, the light in her eyes, said more than words ever could. It was a fragile moment, delicate as spun glass, yet it was real. Finally, Daniel stepped closer, lowering himself onto the chair across from her, a small, cautious gesture that carried immense meaning. Neither spoke for several minutes, simply sharing the quiet, the comfort of presence, the subtle understanding that had grown between them. Then, in a quiet whisper, Anna said, "You know, I've never had someone who just stayed. Without judgment, without expectation. You make me feel safe." Daniel's chest tightened. He stopped, searching for the words that felt adequate. "I want that too. To make you feel safe." And in that moment, the barrier they had both maintained began to crumble. It wasn't love fully formed yet, but it was the spark, trust, warmth, shared vulnerability, and the undeniable pull toward something more. The twins stirred slightly, and Daniel smiled down at them, then at Anna. "We're a team," he said quietly, as if making a promise. Anna's smile widened just a fraction, fragile and hopeful. "A team," she echoed softly. The following week, the mansion buzzed with unexpected activity. A prominent business partner had arrived unexpectedly, insisting on a dinner meeting to discuss a critical investment. Daniel had reluctantly agreed, leaving Anna to oversee the twins while he entertained guests in the dining hall. Everything seemed routine at first. The twins played quietly under Anna's watchful eye. She hummed softly, moving between them with the ease of someone who had spent a lifetime caring for children. And then it happened. A photograph, a small framed picture of Daniel's late wife, tipped from the mantel in the nursery, landing with a crash on the floor. Lily squealed. Noah started to cry. Anna rushed forward to pick up the frame, kneeling beside them, her hands shaking slightly. At that exact moment, Daniel returned from a phone call. He rounded the corner, exhausted from a long meeting, only to witness Anna holding the twins, cradling Lily in her arms, her face inches from the child's. The sight was innocent, tender, but Daniel's mind, exhausted and raw, betrayed him. He saw a scene frozen in time, misinterpreted, and his grief-fueled insecurities ignited. What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice tight, sharp, and unfamiliar to both of them. Anna looked up, startled, confusion etched across her features. I'm just picking up the frames, sir," she stammered, her eyes wide. "The children." "They're fine, aren't they?" he interrupted, taking a step closer, tension rising in every line of his body. You're always so close. Too close." Anna's hands froze midair, holding Lily gently. "Daniel." But he cut her off. I can't do this." His voice cracked, the mix of fear and anger mingling in a way that left no room for explanation. The twins, sensing the tension, began to whimper. Anna's heart tightened. "I'm just taking care of them," she said quietly, almost pleading. "They need me." You need me?" he shot back, frustration laced with pain. "Do you think you belong in this house? In this family? Do you think you could ever replace her?" The words hung heavy in the air, unintentional but devastating. Anna's lips parted, eyes glistening with unshed tears. She wanted to explain, to tell him it wasn't like that she never could, and that she only loved the twins, and perhaps him, but not enough to betray anyone, but the moment had already shattered. She stood abruptly, clutching the twins close. "I should go," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'll find somewhere else." Daniel froze, the words cutting through him like a blade. He wanted to call her back, to tell her he didn't mean it, that he had misread everything, that he had been a fool, but the lump in his throat made him silent. Anna gathered the children and fled, leaving a cold silence in her wake. The nursery felt emptier than ever. The candles they had lit days ago, soft moments of connection, were snuffed out. Hours passed. Daniel sat alone in the study, haunted by the image of her leaving, by the echoes of his own harsh words. His mind replayed every moment they had shared, twisting them into something he wished he could undo. He realized with gut-wrenching clarity that he had almost let himself love again, and had sabotaged it in a single thoughtless burst of fear. That night, Anna stayed with a friend nearby, rocking the twins to sleep in the small, modest apartment that now felt impossibly temporary. She hugged them close, whispering reassurances, but her own heart ached. She had allowed herself to hope, and now that fragile hope had been crushed. Her thoughts returned to Daniel repeatedly. His eyes, sometimes distant, sometimes soft, haunted her. Could a man so burdened by grief ever see her as more than just a nanny? Could he ever trust himself with his own heart again? And yet, despite the hurt, a small ember of hope persisted. She had seen glimpses of his vulnerability, his laughter, the way he softened around the twins. Perhaps there was a chance, if he could overcome his fear. Meanwhile, Daniel wandered the mansion in restless turmoil. He remembered every small act, the barrel bath, shared laughter, the quiet evenings with the twins, and realized he had pushed away the very thing that could heal him. His pride, his grief, his fear of vulnerability, they had all collided at once. He had let his insecurities rule his actions, and the thought of losing her, of letting her go, made his chest constrict. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "What have I done?" he whispered. The night was heavy, suffocating. He had fractured something delicate and beautiful, and it was entirely his fault. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. Daniel paced through the grand hallways, the echoes of his own footsteps reverberating off the marble floors. Each step reminded him of the harsh words he had thrown, the misunderstanding he had allowed to escalate, and the warm, tender moments he had destroyed in a single breath. He stopped in front of the nursery door, closed now, silent. His hand hovered over the handle, hesitating. The room, once filled with laughter, now felt hollow and distant, a place where hope had briefly flickered and been snuffed out. He sank into a chair nearby, hands clutching the armrests, head bowed. His chest ached, not for contracts, not for money, not for the empire he had built, but for Anna. For the laughter she had brought into the house. For the warmth she had given him and the twins. And for the first time, he admitted to himself, he was in love with her. But fear gripped him. Fear of loss, fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection. His heart argued for confession, his mind argued for retreat. For days, he had avoided thinking about the consequences, but now the emptiness of the house reminded him of what was at stake. Across town, Anna sat in the small, dimly lit apartment she had rented temporarily. The twins slept soundly beside her, their tiny breaths even and peaceful. She traced her fingers over the lines of their faces, feeling both joy and sorrow. Joy for the love she had for them, sorrow for the unspoken, fractured connection with Daniel. Her mind replayed his words, the harshness in his tone, the anger she hadn't anticipated. And yet she remembered the other moments, the soft laughter, the shared glances, the trust he had begun to place in her. She was terrified. To reach out meant vulnerability, meant risking her heart again. To stay away meant silence, an emotional prison she had no desire to inhabit. A small notebook lay beside her, filled with scribbled thoughts and sketches she had made over the years, dreams she had almost abandoned. She picked it up, turning to a page where she had written, "Love at last is worth the risk." Her eyes lingered on it, and her decision crystallized. The next morning, Daniel found himself unable to wait any longer. He rehearsed words in his mind, pacing through the study, imagining the perfect confession, but none felt adequate. All he knew was that the emptiness of the mansion, the quiet of the nursery, and the absence of Anna's presence were unbearable. He grabbed his coat and car keys, deciding to go to her apartment. Every fiber of him was tense with anticipation and fear. What if she refused to see him? What if the moment had passed? Meanwhile, Anna was preparing breakfast for the twins, her heart fluttering. There was a knock at the door, a firm, deliberate knock. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. Opening it, she found him, Daniel, disheveled, tie crooked, eyes earnest and raw, standing in the doorway with the rain from his drive still clinging to his coat. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Time seemed to stretch, the weight of past days pressing down on them both. Daniel swallowed. "Anna." His voice faltered. He took a deep breath, trying again. "I was wrong. About everything. About that day, about you, about myself. I misread everything, and I let my fear drive you away. And I can't. I can't imagine this house, these children, my life, without you in it." Anna's lips trembled. Her eyes glistened, reflecting both the pain of the past days and the hope of the present moment. "Daniel," she whispered. He stepped closer, careful but deliberate. "I love you," he said quietly, almost a prayer. "I don't expect anything immediately, but I need you to know. I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I won't." Tears streamed down Anna's face, and she realized the truth she had been holding back. The longing, the connection, the warmth. She had tried to resist it, tried to deny it, but her heart had already chosen. I love you too," she admitted, voice breaking. "I was just afraid. Afraid of losing the twins, afraid of being hurt again." He reached out, hesitated, and then took her hand gently, as if touching her would anchor them both. She didn't pull away. The twins stirred, sensing the tension and warmth, their sleepy eyes blinking up at them. Daniel knelt beside them, offering soft smiles, and Anna wrapped her arm around him, grounding herself in the moment. For the first time since the storm, the mansion felt like a home, not just walls and marble, but laughter, love, and belonging. The morning sun spilled golden light across the Whitmore estate, glinting on the polished floors and painting long shadows across the nursery. The mansion felt alive in a way it hadn't for months, full of laughter, warmth, and the promise of new beginnings. Daniel had returned home the night before, and after their heartfelt confession, the house had been filled with quiet, tentative intimacy. He had stayed with Anna and the twins, helping with bedtime rituals, reading stories, and laughing at their silly antics. The storm had passed, but the emotional turbulence had left its mark, forging a bond stronger than either could have imagined. That morning, he found Anna kneeling on the nursery floor, the twins bouncing around her like tiny suns of energy. She smiled at him, radiant, her hair falling in soft curls around her face. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," he replied, his voice warm, tinged with awe at the woman before him. Noah ran into Daniel's arms, squealing with delight. Lily followed, tugging at Anna's sleeve, then glancing at Daniel with a playful grin. "Daddy, Daddy. Watch this," she shouted, spinning around in a circle. Daniel laughed, lifting Noah higher, feeling the pure joy radiating from his children. But he also glanced at Anna, his heart swelling. She had brought this light into their lives, the warmth, the laughter, the love that had been missing since his wife's passing. Anna met his eyes across the room. No words were needed, the bond between them was palpable. They had weathered storms, misunderstandings, and fear, and now something tender and unbreakable had formed. Later that afternoon, Daniel led Anna to the garden. The twins ran ahead, chasing butterflies, their laughter echoing in the sun-drenched space. Daniel took her hand gently, intertwining their fingers, and she didn't pull away. "I was a fool," he said quietly, voice carrying a mix of remorse and relief. "I let fear and pride blind me to everything I wanted. To you. To this." He gestured broadly at the children, the garden, the light spilling across the estate. Anna squeezed his hand, her own voice trembling with emotion. "We were both afraid," she said softly. "But we found our way here. Together." He smiled, brushing a stray curl from her face. "Together," he echoed. The twins came running back, breathless from play. Lily threw herself at Anna, while Noah clutched Daniel's leg. Daniel bent down, lifting Noah into his arms, and Anna wrapped her arms around Lily. In that simple, shared moment, they became a family, not defined by blood alone, but by love, trust, and mutual care. The days that followed were filled with small, meaningful rituals. Breakfasts in the sunlit kitchen, baths and bedtime stories, walks through the gardens. Daniel learned the joy of letting go, of embracing vulnerability, and Anna discovered the power of being seen, valued, and loved for who she truly was. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold and pink, Daniel and Anna found themselves alone on the veranda. The twins had gone to bed, exhausted but happy, and the house was quiet except for the gentle rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Daniel took Anna's hands in his, looking deeply into her eyes. "I want you to know," he said softly, "that I see you. All of you. The woman who cares, who nurtures, who loves without hesitation. I love you. I want this life with you if you'll have me." Anna's eyes glistened with tears, a mixture of relief, joy, and love. "I love you too, Daniel," she whispered. "I want this too. More than I ever imagined." He leaned closer, brushing his lips gently against hers in a kiss that was tender, yet full of the promise of forever. The world around them seemed to pause. The garden, the mansion, even the distant sounds of the city faded away. All that existed was the two of them, standing hand in hand, hearts open, and the future waiting to be written together. The twins, stirred by laughter from inside, peeked through the veranda doors. Lily waved, her tiny voice calling out, "We love you, Mommy. We love you, Daddy." Daniel and Anna laughed, looking at each other with a mixture of joy and wonder. Their eyes met, and in that gaze, every doubt, every fear, every struggle melted away. They had found each other at last, through storms, misunderstandings, and moments of fear. And now, love had won. Weeks later, the mansion was filled with warmth in ways it hadn't known in years. Daniel watched Anna playing with the twins in the garden, sunlight glinting in her hair. He realized that the house, the fortune, the legacy, they were all meaningless without love. She had given him what he hadn't realized he'd been searching for: connection, family, and a chance to love again. Anna caught his gaze and smiled, a knowing, tender smile that said everything words could not. He walked toward her, lifting her hand to his lips in a kiss that was both promise and gratitude. "Ready for another adventure?" she asked playfully, her eyes sparkling. "Always," he replied, and together they watched the twins running through the garden, laughter ringing out like music, hearts full, and the world finally right. Love at last. Unexpected. Unshakable. And all because a simple act of care, the barrel bath, the laughter, the tender moments, had revealed the hearts that were always meant to find each other. Sparkle's Reflection CTA, Act 9/Ending. Do you believe love can appear in the most unexpected places, even when life seems broken? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear about the moments that changed your heart.